In the 1920s, there was a West Point graduate being groomed for the ruling class by the World War I Prussian Army and military training that was being given West Point in those years, named Norman Schwartzkopf Sr. And this is General Schwartzkopf's father. In the 1930s, he was nationally popular as the host to the Gangbusters radio show. By 1932, he was in the New Jersey State Police as a commissioner, and he was a disciplinarian there. They said he ran it like a military camp, and he was responsible for heading up the so-called investigation of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, in which he framed Bruno Hauptmann, a carpenter who had no motive, in order to get national attention. Lindbergh was chosen by Adolf Hitler in the 1930s to be the President of the United States after Nazi rule was established here. In the 1940s, Schwartzkopf gets into a position of being sent back out to the world on behalf of President Roosevelt. President Roosevelt got a request from the young boy then, the Shah of Iran, to help protect the oil and his government there. And so Schwartzkopf was handpicked by Roosevelt to go out and help to train the Iranian police to back him up. That translates into Schwartzkopf's father trained Savak, the deadly police force of the fascist killers there. And at the time, there in the early 40s, they also were very aware of the Daman Dome in Saudi Arabia, which was this tremendously huge oil deposit they had discovered at the end of the 1930s. They weren't tapping it very much. Oil became an important commodity during World War II, and Averell Harriman, Bush's father's old classmate, suggested to Roosevelt that they go in there and make sure the British weren't able to spread themselves out to those areas of their control during the war, and make sure that that oil didn't get into the wrong hands. And in 1943, they set up, along with Floyd Ollinger, who later was to found Aramco, Arab American Oil Company, and some Standard Oil people, an oil refinery that was pumping out hundreds of millions of barrels of oil through pipelines across the desert there down into Haifa and through certain other routes. And in 1943, when they set this up, they put 30,000 U.S. troops around that oil refinery to protect it, and the general in command of those troops was Norman Schwartzkopf Sr. In 1946, following his World War II duty, he was set up and established as the Provost Marshal for the military rule of Germany under General Lucien Clay, which puts him directly in court, and eventually John J. McCloy and the pardoning of the key Nazis. In 1951, still useful, he was traveling in the Middle East, and especially in Iran, and in those years began to work with a CIA operative who still works there by the name of Bruce Odell. And Odell and Schwartzkopf worked on behalf of the CIA to put a pro-Nazi, pro-fascist element into power in Iran. And Mossadegh won the popular election instead. So in 1953, Bruce Odell, Schwartzkopf's father, and Kermit Roosevelt, who later sat on the board of Standard Oil, were instrumental in a CIA plot to overthrow Mossadegh and put the Shah of Iran back on the throne, lest the oil be nationalized. So the son is a West Point graduate as well, following in his footsteps. He brings us in the 1980s to Grenada and the invasion of Panama. He was a Vietnam commander as well, and part of the cover-up of the friendly fire that killed U.S. troops there. And he was a top planner for these recent invasions in the Iraqi war. And he brought forward the lessons that they learned in Vietnam, and now has reaped a hero status of some kind